Welcome everyone again to the Tuesday Night Smite podcast. This week it's going to be episode 10. It's sort of an off-season episode to some extent because there's no main season going on right now. So we don't have one big topic to talk about for this week. We have several smaller ones. One of those is going to be the NRG draft and the upcoming Invitational this weekend, I think. We're also going to quickly look at Hinduman's power ranking that he has published on Twitter twice now. One, the original version, and then an update that he made, I think last week as well. We're also going to look at, because it is off-season, and this is obviously part of off-season, roster changes, which have happened so far. So yeah, those are our topics for today. And my name is the Robbie Dog. I'm going to be your host for today. Here with me, as always, are Sabo and Psycho. And we're going to start with the NRG draft and Invitational that is coming up. So, who of you guys can tell me something about it? About how the draft went and how we think the Invitational is going to go.
Basically, I got one guy right. And that was Emilio because he had to be drafted.
Yeah. You got one guy right. I only missed one guy, so.
Yeah. I think it was the same thing for me, actually.
Avo was right again.
Because I had... Who did I have? Variety, Adapting... I can't think of it right now. Chicks was not drafted, actually. Okay, I had two wrong. But the rest were right, so it counts.
I think I had everybody but Trix Tank being drafted.
Yeah, and him not being drafted was kind of surprising as well.
Well, you knew Barra was going to take Jeff. That was a given. I picked for Barracuda last week, and I wanted to see Trix Tank more than I did Jeff. But you knew going into the draft, you knew Barra was going to pick Jeff. It really came down to who was, who Ataraxia was going to pick. Was it going to be Jigs or Trix Tank? And he actually surprised everybody by going for Wubbin, which I don't think is a bad pick. But with the other options on the board, might have been.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
he couldn't have picked Trix Tank because he had already had three Europeans on his team. So it was. I think we expected Jigs to go, but he surprised us by picking up Wubbin.
Yeah, I think Chicks would have made a lot of sense because he's strong individually, right? And that's why I sort of thought that he would be picked. But obviously there are other options in NA and in EU, but even though EU supports were not that highly requested in this draft. But yeah, Ataraxia went for Wubbin. And if you look at how the draft went, it makes sense that he ended up having to pick an NA support, right? Because he obviously had to pick someone from the NRG roster. Adapting had already been picked because he was just a lock for first pick for probably most people who were looking at it, and that ended up being the case. And so he had three options left, two options left really, because he could not pick Emilito himself. He had to go for Dimi or for Yaman, right? And if you're in that situation, then you're gonna go for Dimi if you are Ataraxia because you want to have Prime on your team.
Yeah, there were two givens coming into the draft. Barra was going to pick Jeff, and if Ataraxia could get him, he was going to get Prime. That was already a foregone conclusion coming into the draft. I think everybody knew that was coming. Everybody expected it to come. So it wasn't a surprise that he chose Demi over Yemen because he wanted Prime.
Yeah, I think even though both are strong individually, right? I would probably put Prime a bit higher right now than Yaman, but Yaman is still a top mid laner in every region, right? Just worldwide. But because Ataraxia already has this synergy from playing with Prime since I think like 5 years now, or 4 years, it makes complete sense for him to go for him. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would have actually expected Ataraxia to pick Nirma if he wanted a North American support, or he had to pick one, because I think he and Prime, which is, I know they're both really chill and fun to hang out with, just generally from what I see on their streams. So I think that would have been, I thought that would be happening. As you said, he picked Robin.
I don't think we are necessarily putting down Wubbin. I think the pick was surprising more than it was the fact that, or if any of the factors played in, like if what he thought Wubbin was the best, or Wubbin, whatever the audience thought, whatever the fans think. Wubbin was certainly worthy of a pick in the draft. It just, with everybody else that was available, I think Wubbin was a surprise to most people.
Then again,
you look at Wubbin's team, Noble, he was a big, he and my mind just went blank. Tell me who his ADC is.
Wowie.
Yeah. He and Wowie, very much. He and Wowie, along with maybe Stealth, way they played at the end of the split, how they went on that roll. Everybody, most of the fans thought that, they played well enough to get to improve and to make themselves worthy of being one of the NA favorites going into the fall split. And with Wubbin being a big part of that team, it wasn't that the draft pick was not good or worthy. We'll talk about this earlier, where Hinduman has him on his right, or we'll talk about it later, not earlier. But where Hinduman has him on the rankings, it's kind of doesn't do Wubbin justice. I think Wubbin's a lot better than where Hindu has him on his rankings, and the pick was a surprise, but Wubbin certainly was worthy of the pick.
Yeah, but I wanted to say, then again, when you look at the disciplines, maybe Wubbin is secretly and 1v1 on her main and take the win.
Yeah, just hidden away from everyone. So if there is a tie, they're gonna pick him because they're obviously gonna think, oh, supports, they don't play well at all. They're all shit. Yes, I said that. And so they're gonna pick Woman, and then he's just gonna stomp everyone on his honor. That's the real strategy, right?
Maybe he's an assault main.
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea what modes he plays, so maybe he only plays janky customs on random maps with random gods with random other rules and stuff.
Well, looking at the rest of the rosters, with the enemy team picking who the player is that's going to be the Honor, you got to assume Wubbin is probably the number one pick for most teams to play Honor. So.
Yeah.
They're not going to pick Yemen. Yemen, we know, has played Honor in the mid before. None of the hunters or none of the ADC mains are going to be picked for that tiebreaker. So
They should totally do that. Just pick the other hunter. Just complete disrespect. Can you imagine if a hunter main plays 1v1 on her and loses?
oh, they'd never hear the end of it.
Yeah.
It would be a running joke on Twitch chat.
Yeah. So yeah, but going back to Webben again, the reason it surprised me was honestly that he's just not someone that I really have on the radar, despite of how good Noble has looked, or how which good signs we've seen from Noble, right? Because they have looked like a really improved team, probably the most improved team overall, I'd say. And still, I don't think there's a lot of hype around Webben, unlike some other NA supports that would have still been available, like a PBM, like a...
Well,
drawing a blank right now.
Jigs.
Jigs, yeah. Or even Niruma.
Yeah. But Webben is a big part of that team for Noble, not just by what he plays or what role he plays and how well he plays it, but he's one of the older members on the team outside of Delph. He's one of the mature leaders of that team, and the leadership is kind of under the radar, as you would say. But he's a really good support. He's a lot of fun to watch him stream when he does stream. He doesn't stream often, but when he does, it's fun to watch him. He's like overall good person, and his leadership, I think, is, like I said, underrated for that team. You wouldn't expect him to be one of the leaders with Stealth on the team and Wowie on the team, but he really is.
Yeah, I do not know enough about him to really dispute that. So yeah, just gonna accept it.
What's the most surprising pick for you guys? Was it Wubben, or was it somebody like Kiki or Mask over Homie Faye, or which pick surprised you the most? And if you say adapting first pick, I'm walking away.
No, I think it was Kiki for me, actually. Not because, or I'm not even sure if that's true, right? Because if you look at the modes that they're gonna play, one of them's just gonna be all mages. And if you gotta have a solo laner who plays mages, well, Kiki. Because you can talk about the versatility that both him and Cyclone have, right? But Cyclone's versatility tends to be more towards the assassins or those sort of gods, and Ao Kuang, obviously, which is basically an assassin as well. Whereas Kiki's is more towards actual mages, just because he has that experience from also playing mid, and because he has been playing solo since season 1 and has been playing mages solo back in those times as well, right? So I'm not sure if it's that surprising when you consider all the factors, all the modes they're going to be playing, just him over Cyclone. But I think it was still a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, because it was definitely a surprise, just because the team has 3 Americans and 2 European players, so that's what surprised me the most.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm not even trying to be rude, but honestly, like, you can pick you can pick Deathwalker, right? Well, I don't think, even in those modes, Kiki is above Deathwalker, for example.
Well, the question there is, would Deathwalker work without Rival? Or would he work to the same level without Rival? Right? Because Rival, we've talked about it a bunch, I think, are a very team-based team, where a lot of the things they make work, and a lot of things, specifically Deathwalker makes work in solo, are due to the team playing around that.
That was a bad example. And what about Maniac, let's say?
I don't think Maniac was available.
No, he was. I don't think he was either.
So yeah.
Was it because he wasn't on? I'm confused now.
No, he just had something else to do. I think he has something else to do this weekend, so he's not going to be able to attend. or he wouldn't have been able to attend, and he was just disqualified from being picked.
A couple of the North American supports weren't available to be picked either. Shadow Q wasn't available. Eonic obviously wasn't in the league anymore, so he wasn't available. Don't remember if I saw Polar Bear Mike being available or not, but I think Jigs, Jeff, and Wubbin were the only, and Nirma were the only 4 North American sports that were available.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. Why PBM wasn't picked? I guess, or still chicks. Weird.
I'm not for sure, but like, Aurora was already a captain. He wasn't listed on the rankings that they put up before they drafted. Of who was available. But I remember the North American support pool being smaller than the other roles. Like only like 4 or 5 were available. I know Eonic and Shadow Q were not. So
yeah.
But
What I was gonna say about the Kiki pick and him not picking an EU solo laner as well would be that if those 4 that we have, the 4 solo laners on the top teams, are not available, right? The guys below them, they are really a level lower to a certain extent, and I think you can no longer confidently say that they are better than the NA solo laners. So in that regard, I think it makes more sense to go towards an NA solo. You can ask yourself if it would have made more sense to pick an EU player for another role, right?
I want to clarify that I think between the 2 regions, solo lane is probably the closest position between the 2 regions. I mean, agree or disagree with me. Feel free to speak now. But I really think I really think the 2 regions are closer in that solo lane than the other lanes, than all the other lanes.
Well, in my opinion, it depends on based on what you measure it on, the top or just on the average.
On the average.
Yeah, on the average, I think that would be the case. Just because, as I said, the second half of EU solo laners are a whole lot below the top half, in my opinion. So the average is going to be somewhere in between, and the average is probably going to lie where NA's average sort of lies, because NA also has sort of groups that you can put the solo laners in, right? We probably have Benji at the top, and then we have the likes of a Divios, of a Cyclone, of a Walrus maybe, or just Divios, Cyclone. Then we have people like Walrus, like Scary D, like Kiki, and then we have the bottom 2 sort of. It's kind of hard to explain. Just basically, we also have tiers of solo laners in NA, in my opinion.
Well, I've already said this. I'm a Benji fan. I like Benji. He's probably one of my favorite players in the league. I think he can compete with anybody in EU when he wants to. We talked about his maturity issues and how he doesn't take the game as seriously as he should all the time. But when he's at his top level and when he's playing at his best, he can certainly be the best solo laner in the world. And I think he can compete with those top 4 in EU, as well as you gotta think Divio, Cyclone Spin, Kiki, Walrus. They're all just as good as Variety, Deathwalker, Maniac, and Demi.
I don't think I would agree with that, honestly. I think those, specifically Variety and Deathwalker, are still a level above the second tier of NA solo laners. But yeah, this is also really besides the point, I think. Or no, it's kind of on topic.
Kind of on topic, but it's kind of off point because I asked you what guys or what pick surprised you the most? And both said Kiki, which is understandable.
What I was also gonna say is obviously the weapon pick that we already talked about. For the reasons we already talked about.
Talked about Wubbin already. But going back to the biggest surprise, I do agree with both of you. It is Kiki, because not that Kiki is a terrible player. I actually enjoy watching him. He's the best North American solo laner at DreamHack. That's, we've already talked about how poorly we think of Scary D, the other solo laner there. Final K, yeah. He didn't have his best showing, but Kiki was the best NA solo laner in DreamHack. But what was surprising for me was who else was available. You did make the comment that Aurora's team had 2 Americans, 2 Europeans already on the roster, so he had any option he wanted to pick, and he ended up picking Kiki over Maniac. Well, Maniac wasn't available, so I'll correct that. But Kiki over Deathwalker, Kiki over Vivios or Cyclone Spin or Walrus. I think the surprise of it was who was available, much like the Wubbin pick, who else was available at the role. But in Ataraxia's defense for picking Wubbin, he was shoot into picking a North American support where Aurora could have picked anybody in that solo lane, anybody that was available. I would have liked to see Deathwalker, regardless of him being better unraveled than being better, just being a good player all around. I'd like to see the matchup of Deathwalker versus Benji. That right there would have been entertaining as hell for me. I would like, that would have been my favorite match of the week, because those 2 players are so similar to each other that it would have been a great matchup to see. But yeah, Kiki, I think, takes the biggest surprise for all 3 of us, just because who else was available at the time.
Yeah, I think it's close between him and Woman, but it's probably Kiki, because as you said, when you consider all the options that were still available. So yeah. Is there anything else to talk about in the draft? Honestly.
Which team do you guys think is the strongest? Which team do you think is going to win?
Yeah. I think it's sort of hard to tell as well. I think I see 3 of them that I would put a bit ahead of the other one, which are Titans, which is Ataraxia's teams, Minotaurs, which is Raffer's teams, and Juggernauts, which is Barra's teams. Because Manticores, I don't see them making 2 big waves. And I think the 2 strongest ones that sort of stand out are the Minotaurs and the Juggernauts, so Raffer and Barra.
Yeah, I have to agree. I was about to say the 2 teams, Minotaurs and Juggernauts, just because when we look at them and compare them to Manticores and Titans, it seems they're a bit above them. Just for example, the Juggernauts, they have a dual lane that's also together on a team, and also for a very long time. Then a mid lane who is top in EU, a jungler who is top in EU, and a solo laner who is top in EU.
Yeah, just just when I look at these 2 rosters, I see very few things that are questionable. With Juggernauts, I see none at all. Right, those players they picked, they are all some of the top level players in their respective roles. Right, just going through the roster, Variety probably the best solo laner right now, or at least in close contention for it. Cure Fred in contention for second best jungler, for obvious reasons. Zeros, oh no, wait, I misread. Yaman in contention for best mid. Chef, one of the better supports in NA, and has that synergy with his lane partner Barracuda, who's probably still the best ADC in the NA region. So with this team, I see no flaws at all. I see some of them within Minotaurs, right? Because just basically the Panda Cat pick. He is a good ADC, but he's just not. I don't think he was necessarily the best option unless he really has a lot of synergy with Benji, which I don't really see a whole lot of. But yeah, there might be other people that are better at judging this than I am.
Well, I do like the duo lane of Raffer and Panda Cat. That should be, we only get 2 days to see what it's like and how they work together. But I do, just by watching the SPL and watching Raffer stream, I do think this duo lane of Raffer and Panda Cat will work well together. I agree with both of you how it's going to come down to one of two teams, Minotaurs or Juggernauts. You made the comment Variety being one of the best solo laners, in contention for one of the best solo laners. Benji's in that discussion too. Adapting is pretty much widely considered the best jungler in the world. Thyros, Prime, and Yemen are all in that discussion for best mid laner in the world. I think the duo lane of Raffer and Panda Cat will work well together. I expect them to work well together. Will they do better than Jeff and Para? 2 days is a very short time to see if they will match up well against Jeff and Bear, because Jeff and Bear have been together for so long. But looking at the other teams, Aurora, Emilito, and Wub and Ataraxia, I do like Raffer and Panda Cat as a dual lane over the other two options outside of Jeff and Bear. So,
if I may just go into this a bit also, when talking about Minotaurs, I'm actually more interested in seeing what Zyros and Adapting will do together, because as we know, Zeros has been or was the coach for NRG at their second Smite World Championship, I think.
Yeah.
No, I think wasn't it at the third one?
Well, it's season 3, but
at their second World Championship. Yeah,
their second.
Well, at season 3 Worlds, which is their second. Yeah.
So they might still have that. Like, they know each other well, I think. So that might be really interesting to see on Minotaurs.
Yeah, I think Raffer was talking about it when asked on stream that he, Zeros, and Adapting are supposed to have a lot of synergy between each other. So I think this tri-core that Minotaurs have is going to be really solid. I don't think the tri-core of Juggernauts is going to be lagging behind by too much. But overall, I'd see the tri-core of Minotaurs being a bit better. Still, like I said, the only question mark I have about Minotaurs is the Panda Cat pick. Outside of that, they're all the same applies to them that applies to the entirety of Juggernaut's roster, where they are in contention for best in their role in their respective region.
At the very least, it should be fun to see how Benji and Adapting play off one another.
Yeah, that definitely as well.
Adapting has been, like I said, Adapting has been widely considered the best player in the world for a very long time. There was a point in season 3 where Benji and Baskin were in that discussion as best player in the world as well. So, having two of those players on the same team should be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And I'm going to be glued to the Twitch all weekend long.
Yeah. And I think the reasons why we put the other two teams behind them, Titans and Manticores, are the more questionable picks that we talked about, Kiki and Wobbin. I think Wobbin could do well, but we're still gonna have to sort of prove himself on LAN, I think. And there are also some question marks, I think, behind Timmy, and also to a certain extent Masked. So there's a lot more question marks for this Titans roster than for the other one, for example. And we have a similar situation with Manticores, right, where we have this Kiki pick that is a bit questionable. So yeah.
Not to shovel more dirt on the grave, but I'm happy Mask got picked over Homie Faye. I really am. That's just me, though.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, right? Considering how what we've said about Homie Faye in recent episodes. So.
Now, who has the best name?
Titans.
Really? Titans?
Yeah, like Titans, them being Ataraxia's team is so perfect.
It does kind of fit. And, weird how things work out that way.
Yeah, just get a bit of nostalgia going.
I want to see Ataraxia and Prime wearing their Titan jerseys from season 1.
Oh, they should. That would be awesome.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, Rip Titan. So yeah, I think moving on, because we all seem to be in agreement as to who the stronger teams are, and you haven't disagreed with my points about Titans and Manticore, so I'm gonna take your silence as a silent agreement. The next question I have for you guys is, looking at the specific disciplines that we're gonna have, or the specific game modes that they're gonna play, who do you think has advantages in certain ones, just based on their experience playing certain gods or that kind of thing, right?
Well, this is an easy answer for me on all 4 disciplines, even the tiebreaker. Team with the most experience with some jank crazy picks. Aurora drafted this team for a reason, so I think Manticores have the advantage in almost all of these placement disciplines for Saturday before the Conquest tournament starts on Sunday. I think he drafted these players for specifically for this fun portion of the event, and maybe he's hoping that if they do take the number 1 spot going into Sunday, because it is 1 through 4, their rankings will be determined by how they do on these fun type game modes that they do on Saturday. So I think Aurora's hoping that he's number 1 coming out of Saturday and going into the Sunday. Not necessarily because of he thinks he can win the tournament overall, but 3,500 for both 3rd and 4th. If he can somehow find the top spot and find that lucky win, that's a $4,000 boost. I think it's 7,500 for second. What, 12,675 for first. So there's a giant money boost for the teams in second and first over third and fourth.
Yeah. I think going for it makes sort of sense. Although I do like the attitude more than you're actually in it to win it, like the other teams seem to be, right? So there's something to be said about that. So I think going for your best possible conquest team that you can get is still just the better option overall. But yeah.
I think the good thing we can say about Aurora is he understands that this is for fun. Yes, there's money involved, but there's no world championship on the line. There's no spot at super regionals on the line. It's mainly for fun, and he picked the team that he thinks he would have the most fun with, and then the community would enjoy watching. So
Then again, if he manages to win, he would finally get some money from playing Smite.
or he had.
Yeah, but he wasn't eager, so that doesn't count.
Well, they placed third at last year's world, or tied for third and fourth at last year's world championships.
I'm pretty sure it was meant to be a joke.
I'm not good at jokes, so.
Yeah, but I like it.
This is why nobody believes EU. You are all trolls.
Yeah, but we win.
Can't take anything you hear from EU serious.
Yeah, that is true. I will agree.
Sabo is a nice person.
The thing is, still, when it comes to actually playing, EU is still better. Our pros troll on Twitter, you are trolling the game. Or at least it looks like it.
Psycho is an ass, and we won't be winning.
Yeah. So who is the best on her 1v1 player? And who is the worst one?
Adapting best.
It's not it. It's the team. It's the other team that's going to be picking the player from the opposing team. So
okay, who's the best player that could actually get picked to play on her 1v1s?
Well, let's start off by saying who could be picked for each team. I honestly don't know if anybody but the sports are going to be picked. So it's going to be Aurora, Raffer, Whoopin, and Jeff. The best out of those, in my opinion, for the Honor would probably be Aurora, because I have played against him in the mode of the days where you just get the weird picks, and he picked knee support, and they just ran around destroying me. So I know he has at least has the ability to play a hunter. I don't know about the others.
Yeah. Maybe it is just gonna be the Wobbin wild card. Maybe. You never know. Also, I have a question. Does Jeff play Assault with Barra?
I
Yes.
think he does.
Does.
So he's probably had to play on her in Assault at some point. Unless
would
he
think,
just
yeah.
always trades him to Barra.
No, I don't think they trade. They just keep what they get.
So yeah, he's probably played him as well. See, this is why playing Assault is useful for your pro Smite career. This is solid career advice.
You got two players that are really good at hunters that can teach you how to play on her for a match. Yaman and Murrah both play very good on hers. So he's got two really good coaches if Jeff gets picked.
Yeah, they should just do that. Ignore everything else. Focus on coaching. Focus on coaching Jeff for his eventual on her 1v1 that he's gonna have to play. The rest doesn't matter.
Well, they still have to win 2 games to get to the on her.
Yeah, still. Just focus on the tiebreakers. This is the most important part. Do you not see how this is good advice?
I mean, he can just build full tank and never die and take the tower.
In other news, we're going to get to see Kukulin for the first time this week.
Will we?
Pick your poison. Team picks the opponent's team.
Oh, we might finally
Yeah.
get to see Daji.
Do you think he's that
Right.
bad?
I really do.
Wow,
I don't.
that is
I
surprising
like
to me.
solo laners. I like playing warriors. For some reason, I hate playing Kukulin, and it's in
Just
all
because
honesty.
Yeah.
In all honesty, it's his transformation is so random, in my view, that if you're not practiced on him and you're not really used to being able, or you don't know the combinations with him that allows you to transform at the right time, it could really hurt your team. And I just don't like him because he's all, in my opinion, he's all timing based around his transformation. And if you don't time that right, you're not really getting no use out of it.
Just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
Like take you for example, honestly.
just EU in general.
I don't hate EU. I just hate the two of you.
Yeah, but do you like EU?
I like some teams in EU, yeah.
Just the region overall, do you like EU? Saber, what is your opinion about Europe?
That they're better than North America? Is that what you want me to say? Yeah.
No,
Right.
just do you like Europe?
Outside of Smite?
Just in general.
Oh, in general. Okay.
Still waiting for an answer.
Talk about something else because I'm smart enough not to alienate half of our listeners.
Well, I'm not. So I just want to say, I do not like North America at all. So yeah.
I agree. I don't like. Well, shit, I can't say that either. I was going to say something about our current president, but then again, I might be alienating half of our listeners as well
Yeah.
with that comment. So
Just don't talk politics, especially not US politics, because half of the US viewers are gonna get pissed.
U.S. politics is a whole lot like our our NA Smite teams. Sometimes you just can't help but laugh. Sometimes you just can't help but laugh. That's NA Smite in U.S. politics right there, all in one statement. Just can't help but laugh.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think we're gonna see Cullen, honestly. I'd be somewhat surprised. I don't think he's that bad. I think if you can manage the passive meter, which I can't. I played him once, and I think I got into the rage mode once during that match in 20 minutes.
In my defense, I keep trying to play him, and I really can't get a hold of him. So I don't like him in that. But like, I think I'm like ranked 3 on him right now, and so I keep trying to beat a dead horse, and I just can't make it work.
Again, I've literally played one match, and I sucked. So I'm not playing him again. But the point I was trying to make is, I think the pro players can manage to make proper use of his passive, and I think if you do, he has a lot of potential, and has the potential to be picked outside of, or no, not, and is strong enough that he won't be picked when you want to give your opponent the worst team possible. It's gonna give them Arachne, Hell.
Now that's
Bakasura.
You just have to give them 5 assassins.
Okay, Arachne, Bakasura, Awilish. Who else? Other question, do you really want to give an assassin to adapting? Just any assassin.
Well, okay, you can give them, like, if that's a. And it's also like, I think you get, it rolls randomly. So even if you give them 5 assassins, you can't even choose one that he doesn't play because it's random.
But the question was, do you want him on any assassin?
I guess that answer is no.
It's random. He's not going to get the pick, but he's still going to get assassins.
Yeah. Also, if someone gave me in any mode 5 assassins, I would just build Mystical Mail on all of them.
You're a monster, honestly.
No, I'm serious. Right, if they want to fuck us over by not giving us any magical damage, we're still gonna get magical damage.
This is why Roby doesn't play ranked right here.
Hey, I would not pick
Building
5
mystical
assassins in rank.
Building mystical mail on assassins. This is why he doesn't play ranked.
Hey. Fenrir solo is a thing. I've probably seen a mystical male in SPL on a Fenrir solo. Think about it. Still.
That's enough thinking.
Still, I want to say, just the point is, if they try to counter your physical damage, you get mystical mail, and ignore the fact that they try to counter your physical damage because you're gonna have magical damage. It's okay.
What about 5 guardians?
Yeah, you can't do that with 5 guardians, obviously.
They just get Height of the Nemean Lion then to get some physical damage?
Yeah, totally. Why not? Is Height of the Nemean not magical?
No, it's physical. It reflects a portion of physical damage taken.
Yeah, but I think it reflects it as magical damage.
No, it used to, but then they said it was a typo and changed it to physical. A small typo.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you build full tank, plus Nemean, and you reflect more damage back than you're actually taking. Also, you get the new Shield of the Underworld.
Oh, that's gonna be so. Oh, I don't even want to think about that.
Five people get thorns, 5 and get relic dagger and get mystical mail and just run at each other. You can pop thorns every 60 seconds.
Well, we actually did once in a random all pick MOTD was go 5 tiers and all build mystical mail first item. and it was old Joust, so you could push people literally from their tower into your tower, because you had 5 tiers.
Sounds fun and interactive.
Yeah, issue was they had 2 Areses.
Oh, okay, that's...
Breaking news, Roby's a scumbag.
Are you still going to be working with me?
No, Psycho's the ass, and we'll no longer be working with him.
Why is he here then?
I don't know. You invited him.
No, I did not. Anyway. Yeah, let's move on. Or is there anything else you want to talk about with this weird tournament?
let's just
It's
not.
gonna be fun, but let's move on.
Yeah. We're just gonna watch and have fun watching, just like they're gonna play and have fun playing.
I will say this, during that first discipline, the Mage Madness, do not bet on Titans, because we know Ataraxia cannot play a mage. And if we have to, we will link the clip to Giannis ADC.
It's too bad Sylvanas doesn't count as a mage.
Yeah, well, if he did, then Ataraxia is probably my favorite in that game mode, but Sylvanas does not count as a mage.
It's too bad.
Then again, Chronos every game on that mode.
Yeah. Or just go Freya. Go Freya. Problem solved.
Don't go Freya.
No, do go Freya.
No,
What
please
patch
don't
are
go
they playing on? This one or the last one?
I think it'll be the last one, though.
Okay, in that case, do not go Freya. I repeat, do not go Freya.
No, this is a fun, this is for fun, so if they want to, I'm pretty sure they could get this last patch and make RDO available.
What part about Freya's fun, by the way?
Yeah, Freya on 413 is not fun. Wait, is it? Yeah, 413.
Freya's not fun.
Hey, when she's good, she is.
When she's good, she's annoying at best.
Yeah, annoying to the other team, not to you if you're playing her.
Frostbound hammer built into her kit.
Yeah, like if you haven't noticed already, I am a scumbag.
Oh, I knew that the first week we recorded together. You don't have to tell me.
Yeah, still. Freya.
I still say that Freya should get the whole Fatalis removal effect like the others did, but make the Frostbound effect, or take the Frostbound effect away from her.
I disagree.
Because if you're going to take the Fatalis effect away from Soul and Chronos, gotta take that Frostbound effect away from Freya. It's only fair.
Doesn't Sol have a slow as well?
Well, I think so.
But
Or at
that's
least
on,
she used
isn't that on her too? That if you hit the opponent with it, it lasts for only a couple seconds, and then
Does it
on
matter?
Freya's Frostbound effect, if you, since it's so often paired with the other ability, she can refresh it every couple seconds, and you're just shit out of luck. Whereas Souls 2 is like, throw it, and then you gotta wait 12 seconds before you can reapply it.
Don't think her 2 is on a 12-second cooldown. Could be wrong though.
Souls? Yeah, Souls is
It's 10 seconds.
Souls 2.
And it does slow, yeah. Okay, it's a weak slow, but still. Point being, she also has Frostbound. Basically.
The point is she can't reapply it every 3 seconds like Freya
Yeah.
can.
Neither can Freya if she wants to actually do any damage. Because if Freya doesn't use her 2 and her 1 at the same time, she does shit damage. And you're just gonna outbox her no matter who you are, even if you miss half of your basic attacks. So it doesn't matter.
I disagree. But this is not a let's discuss Freya podcast. Let's discuss the SPL podcast. So moving on.
Yeah, let's go and discuss Hinduman's power rankings. What is there to discuss? From what I've heard, they are based on the entire career of a player. So, I'm not sure how it factors in, but I guess it could solve some things that we would probably disagree with if it were based on recent form, right? But yeah.
Yeah, for example, the one I see just when I look at it is Barracuda is listed as the second best ADC cross region, and I would definitely disagree with that right now. But if it's for the whole career, it's dumb. If it's just make a list based on the recent performance, please.
Yeah, I think it's sort of questionable whether there's any purpose of making an all-career list, right? Because what does it really tell you? And also, if you're gonna do it, why is... I'm gonna find a random pick right now that should be number one, but isn't. Why is Timmy not the best solo laner in the world?
Why? Bigger question is, why is Ataraxia not number 3 ADC? And if it's based on the entirety of career, Arkel's been playing for less than a season. I think this fall split is going to mark the completion of his first full season.
Yeah, but the thing with Arkel is he's been really good during like almost the entirety of his career, which is probably why you can put him so highly, right? I think it sort of rewards consistency as well. Ataraxia has had slumps, I think. Arkel and Barra haven't.
It's still based on the entirety of their career. His career is only 1 year long. Ataraxia has had a longer career.
Yeah, but do you reward this longevity, or do you just reward average form across the career? In which case, I think you can make a good case that Arkel deserves to be higher than Ataraxia.
Well, I do think there's something to say about longevity, because if you're not good, you're not going to be able to play as long as Barracuda or Ataraxia have been playing. So the whole longevity thing is important, I think.
Yeah, but then the question is, where has Arkel been like a year ago, right? Has he been trying to... Has he been on Challenger Cup teams for the 2 years prior to that, or has he just recently started going into pro play? Because that makes a difference as well. There's a difference between you not being able to make an SPL team and you not wanting to make an SPL team, or not being interested in making an SPL team just yet.
It wasn't Arkel on... Are we still talking about Arkel?
Yeah.
Wasn't he on Leftovers and Myrmidons? Because I think that would make his... that was in the spring of Season 3, so that would be more than a year.
Oh, yeah.
And also he was on Sanguine. You can't put him up. You just don't. If it's a whole career, how is Arkel, who was on Sanguine and Leftovers, above Ataraxia? Still, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, look, okay. I'm going to rest my case on this pick alone. I don't think it's based on the entire career. I think it's based on the one split. Funballer is the number 10 ranked ADC, according to Hinduman.
Yeah.
Snoopy, Imolito, Barracuda, Ataraxia, Snoopy, Funballer. Those 5 have been in the league forever. And if it's based on the entirety of the career, Funballer's career alone should make him at least top 4, top 5.
Yeah, I think. I probably would agree with that. So yeah, I think the list is just confusing in general because I think some are based on recent performances and some are based on long-term performances because there is just no other justification really. Right, Barra, as we said, Barra does not deserve to be number 2 if it's based on recent performances, and he absolutely does deserve to be number 2 if it's based on lifetime.
There's no way Scary D should be number 5 in the solo lane either.
Yeah, there's no way. I think we both agree that there's no way Scary D should be number 5, regardless of whether it is based on recent performances or lifetime performances. Because Scary has had one good split and one good tournament, one good LAN.
I'm just gonna say something Hinduman said in the comments. When Article has the same consistency as Barra ML, we can talk. Was the question why he isn't number 1 or 2? So why is he still number 3 if it's also about like this list is just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just...
he needs, like, Hinduman needs to specify what this is. Is it a lifetime, full career ranking, or is it just for the one split? Because that's what confuses most people.
Yeah, I think you cannot bring consistency into it if you are talking about a list based on the short term. Because
but apparently, like he said, it's not just the current winning record, it's over the whole SPL career.
Yeah, but then why is he higher than Anorexia?
And why is Emilzy the top support? Our Raptor's 2-time world champion, and he went for a better part of entire season, losing maybe 3 games the entire season. His win percentage should be higher than Emilzy alone based on the one season.
Well, it is based on individual performances, right? And Raffer has never been the strongest link of energy. Whereas you can point out Emilzy to be one of the stronger links in previous teams that he's been in. I think you can do the same with Trix.
Also, Sable, I'm just gonna ruin your fun, and I think that the teams have custom jerseys for the NRG Invitational. So they have a shirt that says Juggernauts, Titans, Minotaurs, and Manticores.
Just ignore them. Wear your other Titan ones. Just take the Titan jersey and just write an S behind them.
Just take a piece of duct tape and just write a S on the duct tape and tape it to the end of Titan.
Yeah.
There you go.
Problem solved.
Anything that about this list other than what we've already discussed that you specifically don't like?
Okay. I'm gonna make a list. Maybe. I would put Dardes higher, I think. I think there's no way that Dardes should be below Draco Marino. And I think there's almost no way he should be below Nirama as well. And I think support needs to be shuffled around in general a bit. I think Kalas deserves to be a bit higher, probably above PBM. I would probably even put Dardes above PBM. That is one thing. I think Chaos, if you look at Lifetime again, deserves to be higher. Just because he's always been a fairly consistent mid, and he has had his great performances, right? He probably deserves to be above Andy and Baskin, who are basically there based on this season so far. Even though he's not looked better than them necessarily in this season.
Yeah, you're saying if it was based on lifetime performance, in the mid row, Chaos would be above them. Not this split, but lifetime performance, yes.
And I think if you're doing it based on this split again, there's no real way that you can put best and stealth below. No, before Andy and Baskin as well.
I think you can make an argument for stealth, just based on how well Noble played towards the end of the split, but with Team AI's performance the split, I agree with you on at least agree with you on the best. I do feel like you can make an argument for stealth, though. So
yeah. And if we go on to the jungle, I think the first two are very clear. I think Homiafi does not deserve to be that high. Looking at his LAN performances, he should be lower, much lower. Masked is probably all right to be that high up there. And the rest makes sense, I think, largely. I don't really see anything I would heavily disagree with.
I don't think Weekend and Fails should be that high. I do think Barizio should be moved up to about where Weekend is, and then Cheerio and Skeledon need to be moved up as well. I think I would put Fails maybe at 10, and then Weekend maybe at 12 or 13.
Well, I'm not sure. Again, if it's based on lifetime, then I'm not sure I would agree with that as well. Cheerio has been looking good this split, but he's had weaker splits in the past, especially when he's not made LAN, right, like he did this time around. Verisiel, he has some sort of consistency issues, and he has a lot of games where he just does nothing, which is a pretty big issue for United and for pretty much every team he's been on, in my opinion. But yeah, I would definitely put Skila and Cheerio above Chapo, right? Because Chapo has not done anything really that warrants that 11th place. Outside of that, I don't think I would move Fails below Cheerio. Just because Fails has looked like a sort of decent jungler during the entirety of his career, when I don't think you can say the same about Cheerio. Cheerio's had his weak times, which I don't think is the case for Fails.
For jungle, I just have one big thing. I think Captain Twig should definitely be number 3 or 2, because he is still the one player who made every single Smite World Championship so far.
Yeah. Again, I think if you look at career, you can try to keep him down a bit more, just because he has had, towards the beginning of it, he was not considered a great jungler. He was largely eclipsed by the other player that he made the swap with, right? Him and Zero swapped roles back in the day. Zero's going from jungle to mid, and Twig doing the opposite. And for the longest time, Zero's looked to be a better mid than Twig was a jungler. It's only been recently that it has changed. So you can make the argument for him being not being third, and especially not being second over Hugo Fred. But as we said, Homiafi needs to move down anyway, so he would be third.
I wouldn't move Homiafi down below Mask. I would put Captain Twig third and Mask fourth, and then Homiafi fifth.
See, I think I would put Ice ahead of both of them. Even though you can make the argument that Cyclone, the team, wasn't good in the fall last year. Still,
we've also seen how Ice Paybeat performs without Deathwalker, and it's really bad. So
yeah, we've seen it.
Homiafi hasn't, as good as Final K has been. I don't think anybody would put Final K on the same level as Deathwalker. So Ice Baby has a better solo laner than Homie Faye, but Homie Faye is still performing at a top level, and that's why I would still put Homie Faye above Ice Baby.
I think it depends sort of on how heavily you factor in LAN performances. Because as we talked about, Homie FA has not shown really anything on LAN, whereas we've seen Ice have great LAN games, even looking back to DreamHack Valencia. So I think if you really factor in the LAN performances, then and value them more heavily than the online portions, you can easily make a case for Final K deserving to be ahead for Ice deserving to be ahead of Homie FE and Mask.
But we've also said that you have to make lands to be able to count that towards them. And we have said that Homie Faye has been so good on the online portions that his team is almost guaranteed to make it to the LAN. Ice Baby has benefited from the fact that he's been on a good enough team that lands are almost a given for every team, that Rival has been able to perform well on LAN. If it's not the fact if it's not the case that they're guaranteed a LAN and that they fall down below that 4th place threshold and they're off a LAN, then I don't think you can count that. I think Homie Faye is a good enough player that he can guarantee, if this team is a relevantly good team, that he can help them, almost guaranteeing them a spot at LAN.
Yeah, I would just I as someone who watches a lot of CS:GO, and in CS:GO the joke is always how completely fucking irrelevant online play is almost. I would think I will value LAN play a lot more highly than probably your average guy would. So on my list, Ice will probably be ahead of Homie and Mask, but I can definitely understand.
I think you misunderstand me. I do value LAN play more than I do online play. You have to make it to LAN to be able to value the LAN play. And with Rivals not being as good online as they are at LAN, they're not always guaranteed that LAN spot. Where I feel as Homie Faye is a good enough player that if his team is relatively a decent team, he is good enough to almost guarantee them a LAN alone. Whereas Ice Baby and Rival online struggles, they've benefited from the fact that that LANs are almost guaranteed for every team at this point.
Well, see, my attitude is that I would not put Rival having trouble making LAN necessarily on Ice performances, even if we saw a shit game from him when Deathwalker was missing. The main idea to me is that we just take the games that we do see, regardless of whether a team makes LAN or not. We rate them for what they are. LAN matches, online matches, grand finals matches, whatever, each have a different sort of relevance, and we look at individual performances in those matches. And I think overall, when you start to consider LAN and when you start to rate LAN more highly, that Homie FE loses points in that regard, and he loses more points than he can afford to lose against someone like an Ice.
Well, I'll sum it up.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, right? That you think he's so good online. Yeah, it makes up for his weak LAN performances, but I don't think I agree with that necessarily, just because Ice has looked so good on LAN, regardless of whether his team has trouble qualifying for them online. It doesn't matter too much to me. The context of how they make LAN in regards to the points he earns at LAN in my tier list in my head. It just matters how he performs on LAN.
If we're putting so much emphasis on the LAN performances, realistically, in my opinion, Homie should be below Cherio on this list. The fact that he's not below Cherio tells me that Hinduman does not factor in the LAN as heavily as what you or I might.
Yeah, in that case it makes sense having Homie FA as third, yeah, or at least as fourth. So yeah, right. It depends on whether we're trying to find flaws in the way Hinduman has rated teams and with the background that he's rated them, or if we're trying to find flaws in how compared to how we would rate players. So yeah. Psycho, do you want to say something as well?
I'm just really confused by this tier list. That's just...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the next one he will make. He said it will be in the middle of the fall split, so I think we can... that one, and hopefully it'll bring more light to what the rating is about.
Yeah. The online portion of the fall split should be over by the time he puts out his next one. So that would go a long way of clearing up what these rankings are all about.
Yeah.
Look, just looking at the rankings overall, the one I would agree with the most is how he has the rankings in solo lane. Outside of the Scary D being fifth, I agree with almost every one of where he has him placed.
Yeah, I think going into solo lane directly, just skipping ADC for now, I think it sort of fits pretty well, right? We talked about, or I mentioned just a while ago in this podcast already, how the NA guys or the EU guys tend to be a bit above the NA guys overall. And we see this sort of reflected in this tier list, right? We have a Radiant Deathwalker at the top, and then we have a sort of mix. We have Benji, and then we start to see a Maniac, Dimmy, and sort of the overlapping between NA and EU. So I think in that regard it makes sense. And we have obviously the bottom three from EU at the bottom of the list as well. So the average is going to be around the same for both regions.
I think you can look at the top four and really place them in any order you want. I feel like the top four solo laners, as he has them ranked, are correct in terms of them being the top four. I do think it can vary from week to week depending on how well they play. But after that, looking at, like I said, he has Scary D ranked fifth. I don't think the three of us would agree with that whatsoever. Davios, Demi, Walrus, Cyclone Spin, Kiki after that, and then you see Ducky squeezed in between Final K and Aquarius, and then you have the bottom three in EU. No Numbers, Creed, and Simi. I think outside of the Scary D being fifth, we would all basically agree with the rankings as they have it, as he has them.
Yeah. I think you can make the case, again, if you're basing it off current form, that Deathwalker might have to be ahead of the variety right now. Just because of what we saw at LAN specifically again, if we value LAN very highly. Even though he had a lot of support from Ice in achieving this, obviously. But yeah, the only big flaw I see here is really Scary D. I would probably put him down to behind Cyclone, I think, so that would be 9th. Then it should be fine, honestly. Outside of that, I don't see much issues with it. Maybe swap around Cyclone and Walrus as well. Just because I don't think in the direct comparison, Walrus is the better player. But outside of that, it seems pretty accurate to me.
I would
And
agree. I would agree with that.
If it's the whole career, then I think Demi should still be above Divios.
Well, if it's the whole career, you're looking at Nemi number 1 and Divios number 2. I
Yeah.
think. But if it's not the whole career, then just based on recent performances, I would agree with Divios above Demi.
Yeah, I think what's important to point out here is that looking back, way back to season 1 or even season 0, if you look at variety, he was not a good player. He was one of the worst solo laners in EU. For I think most of season 1 and 2, and I think even parts of season 3, he was not nowhere near the level he is right now. So you can make the case that he should not be as high if you're basing it on the entire career.
The only difference for me between Variety and Scary D is that Variety has been able to turn his play at SWC and make it a longevity, make it his normal play instead of just being a 1 or 2 month thing, where Scary D coming off SWC could have been considered the best solo laner in the world. We've seen him fall from that, and Variety really has been able to keep a higher level of play above Scary D, and that, based on the entirety of their career, would be the only reason I would put Variety over Scary D if this was a career-based ranking. He has been able to keep that performance at SWC going longer than what Scary D was able to, because they both played phenomenal at last year's World Championships. Variety has been kept that level of play relatively up, where Scary D has fallen hard.
Yeah, I think there's still some difference between the two, right? Because if you look at the false play last year, we already had Variety looking like one of the better solos in EU. Right, we had his Varieteer, which was feared everywhere, and we didn't have the same thing for Scary. Scary during the fall split just looked like a bad solo lane, like by far the weakest player on LG, which to be fair he still is. But I think there's a lot of that's the main difference to me. Like, we saw signs of Variety just getting better as time went on. He always sort of stepped it up a bit, and now he's at the top. He's climbed all the way basically. Whereas Scary it didn't look like he was climbing. It looked like he just jumped and then he fell back down at Worlds and back to just after the spring split, fell back down. Maybe just the main difference being that a lot of the criticism you can level at Scary D is from the fall split in Season 3. A lot of the criticism that you can level at Variety goes all the way back to Seasons 2 and 1.
I think that's the only flaw we see with the solo list then.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with both of you that Scary D should be much lower.
Good. So, in that case, looking at the last role we haven't covered yet, which is ADC, what issues do you guys see there?
Well, if this is just based on this last split, how Wowie is lower than Panda Cat surprises me. I don't think Oceans had a very good split either. I would put Vedium and Funballer, Vote, and maybe Jermaine above Oceans as well. We've already talked about Barracuda, Arkle, and Ataraxia, but where Oceans is a little bit too high for me, and I would probably switch Panda Cat and Wowie and make Wowie 6th and Panda Cat 7th.
Yeah, I think I would agree with those changes if it was based on recent things. And even then, I would probably make some more drastic changes, right? In recent times, I would say that those three NA EU ADCs that we have from 10 to 12 should all be above Wowie and the likes of them, or not above Wowie. Just they should be 7th through 9th. They should basically this group of 3 should move 3 up, and you can still switch Panda and Wowie, in my opinion. But then Panda's obviously going to end up being 10th, but still. I think he's not giving enough credit to the EU ADCs here, if you look at it from this perspective, because they have looked overall, I think, a lot better. They seem to have just more impact in the games overall, even though Wowie has obviously had his massive play.
I think Vote should definitely not be number 11. Like, even if you push the players up, I think Vote is above Funballer, if we're basing it on the recent performance, and Barracuda should be below Arkle.
Yeah, I think that's another thing worth pointing out. If Barra, or if it's supposed to be based on recent performances, then Barra needs to be knocked way down.
Yeah, at least I would have him at least 6th, if anything.
Yeah, I would definitely put him behind Snoopy. Because Snoopy has looked so much better than him this split. Wowie probably has looked better than him as well. So yeah, we would end up with him being 6th. Really. But yeah, lifetime it makes more sense to have him 2nd, just because he's always been a really good hunter, right? But as we said, then Arkle maybe doesn't make too much sense. Wowie probably doesn't make too much sense. The rest
Funballer also doesn't make much sense if we
go
by
that. The rest seems sort of fine though, still in that system to me, right? Because Jermaine, he's had good games, but he's never had the consistency to really become a top EU ADC. Yeah.
I think the most interesting thing about his rankings in the fall, or halfway through the fall split, is where will War Chi end up after that? Because most of the casters have said that the Poppies have needed a split to really find their flow in the SPL, and question is for me is War Chi as good as many people think he is? Where is he going to be in the fall? If the rankings are relatively the same as what they are now, does War Chi go up above maybe Vedium or Oceans as he has them right now? Does War Chi achieve that, or is the Poppy still a bad team in the fall split? Does War Chi find himself above players like Xenotronics or Caspanify?
Yeah,
Because there's been a lot of hype around Borchi, and we haven't seen it yet. And I want to see, does he live up to the hype in the fall split, or does he just have another summer split performance where he's one of the better players on the poppies, but he's not overall a good ADC.
yeah. I'm not sure if I'm expecting too much out of poppies going into the fall. Just because I think they are overhyped to some extent, and I think Warchi himself is overhyped as well. Just because what we've seen from him in the SPL so far has not been too impressive. He still has looked like one of the better players on his team, right? But that doesn't say too much considering where poppies stand right now and how they've not really put up that much of a fight against most of the other EU teams. So I think it really depends on whether the team improves overall and whether Warchi himself improves individually. And there is the potential there for that to happen, right? He's not by any means a bad hunter by normal standards. The question is just whether he can get used to playing in the SPL and whether getting used to it will improve his play enough for him to really advance over the other guys that are currently in front of him.
I would agree with you saying that poppies are overhyped, but I also think that they will look better this split. Because they, like maybe as everyone said, they just needed that one split to find their way in the SPL and to settle in. So we might see a better performance from them. Not sure if it will be enough for Warchi to move above some of the EU ADCs, but also the overall level of the poppies might go up just because they are replacing their mid laner with the Mr. Nazer, who is also, like, a lot of people are saying he's really good and are hyping him up, but then the same question arises: is he overhyped, or will he really be that good?
Yeah. I just want to point out, I think people were saying the same thing about Sam going into this split for Eager. That he was really good.
But
Right.
there was more hype around Warchi than there was Sale.
Yeah, no, I'm
In
just saying, if
my
you're bringing in new players and people are calling them really good, the standard they're applying probably isn't the same that we would apply when we call an established SPL player really good. And there's always a question of how this sort of performance translates between this sort of ranked play and the actual SPL, right? And I think in a lot of cases that we've seen, it has not translated too well. So there always has to be an asterisk when someone says that a new player coming into the SPL is really good.
Like, at least they will be able to make another excuse for Mr. Nazer that he needs to settle in first for Rappies to be good.
Yeah.
Well, see, the one thing about ADCs, and well, I guess you can say this about jungle as well, is that they all have the ability to impact the late game or impact a portion of the game so much that their team can win off that performance during that stage of the game alone. I think from 1 to, well, really 14 as it applies to the ADCs, that any of those 14 players go off, their team can win the game off of that alone. And so I think it's much harder to rank ADCs and jungles based on who's good and who's bad, because from game to game performances can differ so much, and that they can all have great games and affect their teams so much. Whereas the other roles like mid and solo and support to a degree that there is clearly a best player or clearly a top to that role, and the top players in that role separate themselves so much from the other players in that role that if just looking at ADC is a lot harder to do. Emilito, Barracuda, Arkle, Ataraxia, Snoopy, Panic, they're all so good. Even the players below them, they're all so good that they affect a game in certain ways, and if they affect the game at the right point, their team can win off of that.
Yeah, I think the way I would describe it is that hunters and junglers. Or wait, first of all, poor Casbanify and Sops. Poor guys. Still, the thing I was going to say is, I think hunters and junglers both are a bit more volatile roles than the other ones in general. Just because there's a difference between a massive difference between a jungler just playing an average game and a jungler completely popping off. Same with ADCs, right? If an ADC completely pops off, he gets fucking pentakills. Shoutouts to Allied. Rest in peace.
Volatile was the perfect word for that. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, because the other roles highs are not as high as those of junglers and ADCs, but their lows also aren't as low in general.
They have a much more defined effect on the game than the other roles. So their performances are much more volatile in how the game goes than the other roles. Variety, Vinci, Deathwalker, they have great games, they have good performances, but they don't necessarily determine who wins or loses. Whereas if Barracuda or Emilito pop off, or if Adapting or QO Ferret or Mass pop off, the game, it would take a miracle for the other team to come back in and win that game. So it's volatile is the perfect word, and I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I have the best words. Just wanted to put that out there. All right. So anything else?
I both and hate you at the same time.
That's how a lot of people feel about me, I've heard. Anyway.
It's justified.
Do we want to leave this list behind, or do we want to discuss something else about it before we do?
I think this was enough. At least, I've had enough of this list.
Good. In that case, let's move on, just to save Psycho. And the thing we're moving on towards are the roster changes that have happened so far in this off-season that we're having right now. And I don't think these are in chronological order. They might be. So yeah, let's look at all that has happened so far. I think the first change that was actually announced first was Dimmy moving to coach for NRG. What are your thoughts on that?
If it was just the news that Dimmy is moving, is not going to be on the main roster anymore, I would not really like it, just because there wasn't there were not many great jungler soul laners available. But then news that Maniac will be going to NRG came out. And that is why I kind of like Dimi going to the coach role, just because he hasn't been performing that well lately. And he's still on the team. He can still do something for the team as the coach. Maybe eventually, if he regains his edge, he can move back to the main roster.
I don't think Demi lasts very long in this role. I think he's too good of a player to be a coach.
Yeah, I could easily see teams looking to pick him up. Like even now, a lot of the lower tier teams could look towards getting Demi. It just seems like right now he does not have the motivation to play this game competitively. But we've seen similar sort of situations from other players. I think Stealth's a good example, where he said he wanted to take a break in the spring of this season, and ended up joining Noble, obviously. So it might just be that Dimi is actually going to go to a different roster. It might just be that he's going to come back sort of rejuvenated in the spring next year and going to find a new home. Or going to find his old home, yeah. Just
that's exactly why I say this doesn't last long, whether it's he's going to find a team immediately or if it's going to be filling in for a different team halfway through the split because they don't like their solo laner and Demi is available and willing to play, or if this just lasts one split entirely for the fall split. Demi is too good of a player to be a coach for any long term, so I don't think this is a permanent move for Demi whatsoever. I do expect him to find a team for the fall split.
Oh, for the fall split even?
I do.
That would honestly surprise me, just because he has said that he is sort of fed up with the game, and he seems really willing to take a break, so I would be surprised if he doesn't at least take one split off. But yeah, we'll see.
You bring that up, and then I all of a sudden remember Raffer said basically the same thing, but Raffer is still playing. So
yeah, but Raffer wasn't basically kicked from his team.
That's exactly right. Demi was basically kicked from NRG for Maniac, and though he has said the right things and saying I'm moving the coach and I'm looking forward to it, I think just from a personal standpoint, I think that he feels slighted in some way that his team doesn't think he is as good as he once was, and that kind of motivation, whether you're motivated to keep playing the game or not, to prove somebody wrong, I think is enough motivation for Demi to find another team.
So what you're saying is there are even more MLC Stealth parallels. Potentially.
I do think it's very much the same situation as it was for Stealth. People, his team's telling him he's not good enough to be a part of the team. That can be motivation enough for him to find the willingness to keep playing for a different team. And who knows, Obey might be the perfect fit.
Yeah, it would be an option, I think. I'm not sure if they're gonna go towards it. I'm honestly not sure if Demi is looking for a team right now. As I said, I would be a bit surprised by it. But yeah, I could also see it happening to some extent. We'll see, I guess.
Isn't Demi also studying right now?
Could be.
We'll see if that's the case. Why not come out and say it like Eonic did?
I think he I
If
remember
it's
him tweeting something about doing a game at a university.
Yeah, he made it tweet longer. I'm gonna just quickly read through it and tell you what I read.
and this is Eonic's twit longer, right? This is not Demi at all. Or is this Demi's twit longer? I'm not sure if Demi had a twit longer.
It's not in. There's nothing about studying in his tweet longer from what I can see. But yeah, he also made one, just nothing about studying in it.
Now there's a tweet from July that says, "In case you're wondering what I'm doing at uni, a 2D platformer where you play as a cactus ninja fighting against evil balloons."
Oh. I guess that makes sense.
That's
Oh, yeah.
That indicates he's studying, so he maybe like that seems like more of a reason not to find a new team and just focus on himself.
Okay. Just overall, I think he has less of a will to actually go for a new team or go to a new team than Stealth did. From everything I've heard, right? So I don't expect him to find a home for this split in later splits. Again, looking towards the spring of next year, I see it happening, definitely. But the circumstances are obviously going to be. We're going to see what the circumstances are, where NRG as a team itself stands, where the rest of EU stands, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, I would almost agree with you about him not finding a team for the split, but if the situation is what I think it is, and moved to coach because they didn't think he was good enough to keep playing, I think Demi takes that as a motivation to find the will to keep playing, and Obey, like I said, is an option. I think he would automatically make Elevate one of the top 4 teams in EU if he joins the Elevate roster.
Yeah, I think
So
he would
that's-
have. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that's another option for him. I think he makes Elevate automatically one of the top 4 teams if Obey doesn't want him.
Yeah, see the thing I've heard about the entire situation with Demi is that he was playing poorly, he was playing poorly because he was not putting the time into the game that he maybe should have, and he wasn't putting the time into the game just because of motivational issues. And the thing I see with this is it's a different situation from Stealth's, because Stealth's motivation was never the issue, right? Stealth has always wanted to be on a top team and fighting for World Championship titles. Stealth's issue has been an entirely different thing, which has been the toxicity and just his overall level of play getting a bit worse, regardless of how much time he's put into it, right? So I'm not sure the situation compares a whole lot, and I'm not sure that a person who is already lacking the motivation is going to gain back enough motivation from being kicked from a team to really go find a new home quickly.
Well, being told you're not good enough is a big motivation factor for a lot of people, not just in Smite, but in life general. So if they kicked Demi because he was not playing good enough, or he was not good enough to play with this team any longer, could be motivation in itself for him to go find a new team and find the will to keep playing.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm just not sure it's going to be enough. And as far as Elevate is concerned, he would definitely be an improvement. He would be an improvement on any of the bottom 4 teams, if you ask me. So So if he's gonna move there, I think the two best candidates are probably Enix and Elevate, right? Just because they are 5 and 6. Poppies is not a candidate because they are a Spanish team, and their latest roster move shows us that they look like they're trying to keep this team Spanish, right? And I don't think Burrito is good enough for him to even consider them an option. So yeah, those are his two options in my opinion if he wants to find a new home, Enix and Elevate.
Finds motivation from this. I think it's gonna be to just get better at the game again and play it more, so he can return to the NRG roster instead of finding a new one or becoming a part of a new one.
Well, I can only speak for myself. If somebody tells me I'm not good enough, I'm gonna do everything I can to prove them wrong.
Yeah, that is good for you, I guess. Yeah, like honestly, we're gonna have to wait and see. I think we're all judging Demi's mentality a bit differently, but what he actually does is going to show who's right. So we're going to wait from that, and then we're going to laugh, and then the guy who was right is going to be allowed to laugh at everyone else. Yeah, that's how it goes here. So the other part of the move that we've already talked about slightly was obviously a Maniac switching from Obey to NRG, and looking at what the situation for Obey looks like, probably most likely here, or just to quickly touch on it, how do we rate Maniac as a replacement for Demi? Do we see him as an upgrade, as a downgrade, or as a sort of side grade?
What in the world is a side grade?
Well, you just get the
Basically,
same thing.
Switch. Basically, what a side grade is an even switch that they're both almost the same level of play.
I would use that then, because I think Maniac right now is a better player, but Demi had 3 years with NRG, so that will definitely play, or at least I think that will play a role in how good Maniac is on the NRG roster right now. So maybe after a while he will be an upgrade, but right now I think it will be even.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I don't think Maniac fits the same role that Demi had, right? Because Demi was a solo laner that was largely focused on playing for his team and was largely a more passive solo laner, at least in the latest season. Whereas Maniac has a more of an aggression factor that he can bring to play. And so I don't think the transition is just going to be seamless between Demi and Maniac because they have different playstyles, right?
Well, for me, this is an upgrade for energy, just because Maniac is playing better right now than Demi was. I won't make an argument on that point, even regardless of what I just said about if Demi feels like was slighted in any way. Maniac is still the better player at this time, so it's an upgrade for energy. As far as Maniac goes, though, it's a sad grade for Maniac going from Obey to energy, even if it might be a slight downstep going from Obey to energy, just based on how well both teams played this season in general. Obey was widely considered a better team than Energy right now, and for Maniac to switch from Obey to Energy, it's a little bit of a downgrade for Maniac as far as team base is going. But the biggest question for me is, what is the mentality on Obey if Maniac feels like, even though Obey has been the better team this season, if Maniac feels like NRG is better at this point, like, what's that say about the environment on Obey, the mentality of Obey? Is it still good? Does Maniac see a problem with that roster, and is that why he left? Or, is this just Maniac feeling like NRG is a better team and has the better shot at winning Worlds? I don't know if you can make the argument that NRG is better than Obey up to this point in the season. So this for me spells trouble for Obey.
Well, I think there's two things that are relevant here. First of all is I think Maniac's reason for switching is probably because he thinks NRG has a higher ceiling than Obey does. Because we've seen NRG have sort of their issues with getting sort of back to their old level as well, right? And Obey has potentially hit their ceiling. I think you pointed out yesterday that last week, that you thought they had peaked. If Maniac has the same thought, then it would make sense for him to switch to a roster that he doesn't think is currently at their peak, right? And the other thing is, we can compare the state of the current NRG roster to the current Obey roster, right? So Demi NRG to Maniac NRG, to Maniac Obey, and you would probably you would most likely rate Obey above NRG right now. But after the roster change, it's probably going to look a bit different, especially if Obey do not get Demi, because then you're looking at Obey with a replacement solo laner that is likely not going to get to be at the same level as Maniac, and it's going to hurt their team overall, and it can easily end up with NRG overtaking them.
Now, if we look at the replacements Obey has available, they have, if it's assuming it's not Dimi, they will have to pick up one of the older soul laners. The newest one being Dahlia, I think, left the pro scene as the last one, or maybe even Zashu.
Yeah, I think it was Salia, and I think they also have other options that are currently in the SPL, right? I think one of them is going to be no numbers. Ducky would obviously be an option as well. But assuming these players do not want to leave their teams right now, which I don't think many of them will be willing to do, right? So no numbers, Elevate's been on an uptrend. He could decide to stay with them. Ducky, Enix has not looked like a poor team, and their chances to actually overtake Obey have arisen now that Obey is currently lacking a good solo laner as well. So the question is, what motivation would Ducky have to leave, right? But apart from that, they could definitely be looking at other older solo laners that are currently not on a team to pick up.
Well, I've never quite really been a Delia fan, so I'm not going to involve him by potential replacements. You made the argument, or you made the point a while ago, Roby, where if Maniac felt he left Obey because he felt NRG was the better team. No numbers and Ducky, if they feel Obey is the better team than the team that they're currently on, I think they make the switch regardless about how they feel about their other team, the team that they're currently on, because they do think Obey is better than what than their current situation. For me, the obvious replacement in my eyes is probably Zashu. I think he does a lot of what Maniac does. Maniac does it slightly better, but I think they're fairly similar players, and I would think Zashu would be the most obvious choice if it's not Demi. Demi for me is clearly the favorite right now, but if it's not Demi, Zashu is probably the one I want to say best fits the best.
See, I think there a big option could be no numbers, just because of him having this sort of role player mentality that sort of role player mentality as well, and because Elevate seems like a more likely team that you would leave than Enix. And I think no numbers would be a downgrade compared to Maniac, obviously. But he would probably still be better than a lot of the other options they would have, excluding Demi, of course. So yeah.
See, I agree. If no numbers is willing to make the trade from Obey or from Elevate to Obey, Maniac did it because he thought NRG was better in a better way than Obey, and if no numbers thinks like Maniac, Obey is in a better situation than Elevate. So no numbers is the best option if that's the case. If no numbers and Ducky decide to stay with their team, however, I feel like Zashu is a better option than Zelia, because Zashu does a lot of what Maniac did, only Maniac did it slightly better.
Yeah, I think this meta is still not one that is really beneficial to Zelia. Just because when he looks best, it is on these off-meta picks that people aren't really used to dealing with or aren't expecting, or where he actually has a large carry potential on, similar to a Cyclone Spin, right? And these do not work in the current meta. In the current meta, solo lane's completely dominated by the warriors, and those are not his strongest suits, right? He's still a good warrior player, just nowhere near the level of the current top solos, really. And Sashu, I think with Sashu, it's sort of rolling the dice as well, because he's not been in the SPL for so long now, I think over a season. And it's a risk that you would have to take, but it could prove itself to be worth it, right? And from what we've seen seasons ago, as you said, he seemed to be a more traditional solo laner than Azalea, and could be better in that sort of role.
Obey is no stranger to taking risk, because Maniac was a risk at the beginning of the season, because he was, he and Zashu kind of fell off at the same time. Zashu did get suspended. Maniac did decide to, leave, but as far as taking a risk on a solo laner that has not played in a while, Obey is a team that's willing to take that risk, clearly, because they did it in the spring by bringing Maniac back.
The problem I see with bringing in Zashu is, I don't think he would fit. I don't think he would fit well in the team, as far as personality goes, because if I'm not mistaken, he was banned for harassment.
Yeah.
And it was for a year, so it means it has been his 5th ban. And I don't think that would go well with Brady Prime, for example. He's like one of the, like many call him just a chill guy in SPL. And that's the one problem I see with Zashu joining Obey. And I think Ilya would be a better because
I will remind you though that he was one of the leaders on that Cringe Crew team. Whereas if he's coming to Obey, the team it's pretty much the leaders have pretty much been determined, and they won't allow Zashu to do that and become a tumor or a cancer to that team, because the leadership is already pretty much determined for that team, and he will not have a leadership role on that team. He'll be a role player.
Yeah, I think he's only ever going to land on this team if he has done successful tryouts and if they find that he is meshing well with them as a team overall. The added bonus he has is really having been on a team with a Milsey before, so he could be looked at more closely, and he already has some synergy built up, although not too much, right? But it could be to his advantage. So yeah.
I mean, Obey can also go to their old players like Godfrey or Brodus. I mean, there's some synergy there as well, if you want to go that way.
I would rather see Snakeskin coming back.
Snakeskin is a coach now. He's coaching the Pappies.
So is Dimmy.
So is Dimmy. Good point.
See?
Snakeskin. You're both wrong. Omega is moving to Italy, and he's going to be the Obey solo winner.
Is his wife going to agree with that?
Yeah. His wife got a job in Italy, so they're moving to Italy, and Omega switching regions.
So we're no longer going to have just one Italian. No, we're going to have an Italian SPL player again. Basically. Well, he's just going to live in Italy still.
I'm lying my ass off, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Please, you can't prank me. So yeah, I think overall the summary for the situation is that unless Obey get Dimmy, they're gonna have a downgrade, and it's gonna hurt them probably to some extent, and it could realistically put them out of contention for Worlds even, which is a scary thought.
Well, the other roster changes come out of North America, and the first one that comes up is Bedium has decided to leave Space Station Gaming. Don't know if it's by his own choice or if by the team's choice, but he did announce on Twitter that he is now a free agent and he's no longer on Space Station Gaming. Rumors earlier in the split were that Zapman was going to come in and fill in for Bedium. Zapman decided to continue his break from Smite. But in light of this news, is it Zapman? Are we expecting Zapman, or is somebody else? Do we expect somebody else to come to Space Station?
Well, it wasn't rumors in the summer whether he was going to join, right? It was actually he was listed as part of their roster during 1 week, and we know that he was in discussions with the other guys on the Space Station Gaming roster, and looking at them at how their new org, obviously Space Station, was looking like. So I think it's likely that he will join them. He seems like the obvious choice as well, right? He's the by far the largest or the highest profile free agent ADC right now that is available, and it would only make sense if they picked him up.
Also, it isn't like VCM is having a bad time right now. He isn't even playing bad. It was, I think, The only reason he is off the roster is because Zapman is joining. I think he is better than Vishim.
Yeah, I don't think this is as much them kicking Rishim as it is them bringing in Zapman, right? This roster move was not done because Rishim is bad. It was done because Zapman is just better than Rishim, and it only makes sense to bring in someone better if whenever you can, really.
Well, the thing that tells me that it might not be Zapman is that if it was already known, if it was already a foregone conclusion that Zapman was joining this team over Vedium, why has it been 3 or 4 days now since the announcement of Vedium leaving? They haven't made an announcement that Zapman is on the team yet. And for them to wait so long, where the Maniac move from Obey to NRG was only a matter of hours. Like, Maniac announced that he was leaving Obey early on. Well, it was early for me on the day that he did it, and then it was only shortly after the NRG draft that they announced Maniac was joining the team. So it was only a matter of hours for that announcement to be made. The fact that it's been 4 days and they haven't said anything about Zapman joining the team makes me think that it might not be Zapman after all.
They're just trying to build suspense, obviously.
But if it is Zapman, where does Zapman joining this team make this team at? Where does this put them at?
Well, it's an interesting question, right? The main issue we have with the Space Station roster is Homiefi on LAN. Bringing in Satman does not solve that main issue. And it's also questionable as far as just playstyles go. Because when you look at Vishim, he was more of a passive player, right? A sort of role player in the ADC role, whereas Satman is most likely going to be aggressive. So it's a mentality change for the entire team as well, because at that point they're starting to lack these role players. We have Final K who sort of fills that role as far as the solo lane is concerned, but the rest of the roster is going to be aggressive. If you look at the names, right? You look at Andy in mid, aggressive. You look at Homiefi in jungle, aggressive. You look at JX, you look at Satman. All of those guys are going to be aggressive. And the question I would have, or the thing that concerns me, is if this is going to mesh well as a team overall.
Yeah, it brings up the issue that we had with E United earlier on in the split, where everybody is aggressive and there's not a lot of counter to that. There's not a lot of passive play on this team. And what hurt E United, or what the issue we had with E United, is very much the same here. If for Space Station, if Zapman is the new hunter, where does the reining in of all that aggression come from? Because it was Vedium, and for E United, it was Chaos, it was Polar Bear Mike reining that aggression in. I don't know Final K all that well, but I don't know if he's going to be able to, just based on his experience, if he's able to rein that aggression in to a point to where it's not detrimental to the team.
Yeah, if you look just at what he is, right? He's the second newest member of this roster. He is a rookie for the season. It's hard to imagine, and he's a solo, and it's hard to imagine that he has the necessary position in the team to act as a sort of leadership role. So I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do that, if they're going to even listen to him because he is lacking this experience and because he is not playing in a role where he can properly see what is actually going on across the map and really tell his team what they're doing wrong overall.
We're still talking about space station, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of lost today. I just honestly don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, not only is Psycho an ass, but he's also a confused ass, and we'll know what we'll be working with.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure where I see this team really. Going into the split overall, I'm not sure if it's gonna work. Just the system itself, the system overall in the team, it could hurt them. It could benefit them as well. And then at LAN, I think there is this big issue of Homie Effie that's just gonna be looming over them. And if the other NA teams manage to keep pace to a certain extent, which it looks like they are going to be able to do, it's going to be hard for this Space Station roster to make worlds.
Yeah, I gotta ask a question. Is DJ still the coach of this team?
I'm not sure.
Because I don't. That's another thing that makes me think it might not be Zapman, because Zapman and DJ's disagreements is what caused DJ to be removed from Eager.
I think DJ's off because he's going to study as well. I think he
But
just
is he
recently
still-
moved.
Is he
So I
still the
don't-
coach of this team, though? That's the question. Is he still the coach of this team?
Well,
Because if he is, it may not be Zapman.
he has not announced that he is leaving the coaching role there as of yet. At least I can't find anything on his Twitter. So I do not know.
Let's just assume he is still the coach right now. Then it might not be Zapman, but who else would it be then? Like, who else do you pick up instead of Vishim? Vadim. It's not Vishim, it's Vadim.
Snoopy? I mean, we know he's friends with Anderster, and we know he's friends with Jigs. And Eonix is no longer on the, Eonix retired, so Snoopy looks like a fit for me on this team.
Yeah, now that you mention it, would be interesting. Right, he has reason to leave Trifecta because they just lost their support. They're unlikely to be able to properly replace him going into the fall, and they might still have a chance at Worlds if they get their team together going into Super Regionals. But outside of that, it's going to be hard for them as well, and it could be that Snoopy's just going to try and find a good team. Which Space Station definitely qualifies as. So, yeah.
Snoopy seems like the obvious choice if it's not Zapman for me. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like I said, he's friends with Annister. He has that synergy with Jigs as well, because Jigs was the coach on. Mine went blank again.
What were you saying?
TSM. Jigs was the coach on Team Solo Mid. So
Oh, yeah.
Snoopy has a relationship with Jigs already, and we know Annister and Snoopy are good friends. So Snoopy seems like a perfect fit if it's not Zapman.
Yeah. it's gonna be interesting. We're hoping for an announcement soon, obviously, just to hear what's gonna go on in this team. But
Just
yeah,
gonna come 10 minutes after we finish recording, like I did with the DreamHack brackets.
oh yeah, totally. Let's. Hey, that's a reason to be excited, not to dislike them or anything. We should just make the podcast 10 minutes longer than we usually do. We're
I don't
already
think that's
pretty
how it
deep in.
works.
We're already pretty deep in, so let's move on to the last roster changes. Roster change that was announced, which is Chaos leaving United and taking a job at Hi-Res as a developer, I think. So yeah, the first question I have is for you, Sebo. Have NA's hopes and dreams just been shattered?
Well, let me say. I'll start off by saying this. I'm happy for Chaos. Congratulations to him. Uh, though it does hurt NA's hopes for SWC. I'm really happy for him. He was able to find a good job at a place where he's very familiar with, and so it's very rarely that a person is able to find that, and so I'm happy for him. As far as the hopes for NA, E United was the team I was putting most of my hopes in, and his absence is going to hurt them. But I still think the team is good enough that if they find the right placement, and that's the key, if they find the right replacement, then given a week or two to find that synergy with his replacement, that they could really still be that team that NA puts all their hopes on. But it does, him leaving does hurt E United. Let's make no mistakes about that. But if they find the right replacement, then it could all work out for everybody involved.
I'm gonna ask the same question for the third time. Who will they pick up? Because they need someone with a playstyle similar to Chaos to, or at least I think so, because they can't just change their playstyle and play. English is hard.
Yeah.
Their playstyle. So suddenly, and still top team, or so I like one of the things. And there is no, like, let's just say there's not really any good free agent mid laners right now, or not any that I know of.
Well, you say that, but I think there is going to be one pretty soon, and his name would be the best. Because the situation right now is right that Team AI is going to be moving into relegations, and we have no idea who's going to be on the roster just yet. It could be best, it could not be best. If it is best, and if he stays with them, then obviously they're going to have to look for someone else. But if if he does leave AI and move to United, is definitely a possibility, right? And he will probably fits sort of the same role that Chaos had, where he's just going to be a role player, but a really, really good role player for his mid role. So I think it will fit almost perfectly, honestly.
I agree with the best. I also want to say something about maybe Herwind if Snoopy does decide. It's all speculation, but if Snoopy does decide to join Space Station Gaming, and Trifecta does basically fall apart at the seams, Herwin is one of the better mid laners in North America right now, and if he's a free agent, that's a way E United could look towards going. Another name I want to bring up, probably a long shot, but I think really fits with this team is Matt Yankee. And depending on where Allegiance goes and what roster moves Allegiance makes, if Matt Yankee is a free agent, uh, I do like his play style and the picks he usually goes for to join this team and help E United. I'm not saying Chaos and Matt Yankee are similar players. I do like the the Matt Yankees ISIS pick here. I do like Matt Yankees soul pick with this team because we know Chaos played a lot of soul. I do like just Matt Yankees God pull overall and the play style he goes for with a team we've pretty much already said has a lot of aggression, and outside of Polar Bear Mike really doesn't have that passive play style to rein in all that aggression. And Matt Yankee fills that role there as well. That he can be aggressive at times, but he's a much more passive player than what Verizial and Benji and Panda Cat are. And so bringing in Matt Yankee would not be such a bad replacement. I think he fits really well with this team as well.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm just not sure that he's up there mechanically, right? I think we've seen 2 splits from him now as well in the mid role, and he hasn't looked like the most impressive mid compared to the other ones that have switched as well, Baskin and Anster. So I'm not sure if he's at the same level as a Best. And I can only really see him getting picked up by United if Best is not available, which is obviously still a possibility, but I don't think... I think he will be available. So, yeah.
Well, it could come down to whether or not Best and Aurora want to stay together, and if Allegiance feels like Best and Aurora are better than Matt Yankee and Neruma. So if Best and Aurora do decide to stay together and Allegiance wants to make that move, then the Best could find himself as part of Allegiance. If they do decide to split up, I agree with you 100% in saying that the Best fits on E United. But without that certainty, knowing that teammates for such a long time in Aurora and the Best do decide to go their separate ways, without that certainty that they are going to split up, I would just say Herwind and Matt Yankee are good fits for this team, for E United, in Chaos's replacement.
Now, I actually didn't think about this, but if none of the current mid laners want to lead their team, do you think Fierno would be able to play mid lane for United, or is he just not good enough? Yes,
Fierno's a coach,
Fierno.
right?
I think he's a sub.
I don't know enough about Fierno to make an educated guess there, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to answer that.
You can always
Yeah.
bring in D-Money and a Scotty mid.
Yeah, no, what I think about Fierno is I'm not sure he has what it takes to be a mid for a team that is trying to be top tier in NA, right? I'm not sure where else they could go to, just because the mid pool in NA seems really shallow right now. But I don't think he would be the solution to the problem that Chaos leaving is presenting them with. So yeah.
I mean, there's Oswald, but the SPL gatekeeper he's on the team with Payne Devion, so we expect them to. I at least expect them to be able to beat whatever Flashpoint comes up, and I think Moswell is already a part of the SPL because I don't think Flashpoint makes it back in. To be honest with you,
We were saying the same thing last time.
Venenu, the former Team Allegiance hunter with Incon and Matty Pocket, or not Matty Pocket, but Cope, when they were still on the Allegiance team. Venenu is now a mid laner. He's playing mid lane for the other Challenger Cup team that's coming into relegations. So Venenu is an option there, of course, for United as well, because I do like watching Venenu play mid for that team he's currently on. I can't think of it. A Mighty Storm, I believe, is their name. I
have no clue.
I'm not. I like Venenu as a mid laner too. So Venenu's an option there as well. I just don't know. Like, the best is obviously the best option right now. No pun intended, but he is the best option right now. But if he's not an option, he decides to stay with the Roar, and the team does not want to move on from Polar Bear Mike to bring in a Roar. The two best options are Herwind and Matt Yankee. And Matt Yankee is still a good solo laner, is still a good mid laner, even though he has not shown it as much improvement as a Annister or Baskin have so far. He has still been a solid mid laner, and he still continues to get better week to week. So Matt Yankee is certainly an option for me. So my top three would be Herwin, Matt Yankee, and Venenu, if the best is not available.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I hadn't actually considered Venenu, but if he's moved to mid and if he's having success in the role, then it makes sense as well. Where did all the good NA mids go? Like, seriously.
Yeah, they actually all just disappeared, and even when other players moved to mid, we don't have enough of them.
Yeah, we have 4 players have moved to mid in like the last year. And still, we're calling the fucking NA mid pool, or I'm calling the fucking NA mid pool shallow. What's going on?
I remember Mace their face and Bush. They just left the game, didn't they?
I think the Bush is the one that you're talking about, because I never had Mace the Face as a high ranked mid laner. I think Bush was better, and I think Stealth, Bush, Chaos, with two of those three being gone, I think you're right. It does make the NA mid pool very shallow.
Also, Mace their face is now a competitive Smite tactics player for Flashpoint. I don't know how much credit you can give to that, but yeah.
Hey, he got second at DreamHack.
It's Smite tactics.
Yeah, he got second place. That's probably better than anything he's ever done in Smite. Let's be real.
He's not lying there.
Yeah. No, but
I just never had Mace the Face as being a very good mid laner. So
yeah, but we're not looking for very good mid laners right now. We're just looking for good ones, because there are no very good ones except Stealth and the guys that have come, like Andy and Baskin, right?
if you go back to Hinduman's rankings, Herwind and the best are the top 2 right now.
Oh yeah, well, those as well, obviously. Except Herwind is kind of still questionable, in my opinion. But still, let's not start more drama. We're already way too far in with this show.
Oh, I don't know. I can talk about Smite all day if you asked, if you wanted me to.
Yeah, but we can only upload 3 hours to SoundCloud.
All right. Well, I guess we should wrap it up then, shouldn't we?
No, if you have another point to make, you can easily make it about this roster change situation.
Be fun to make a 24-hour stream.
Oh
Just
god,
talking about Smite all day.
I would need so much tea to get through that.
I'll just have like 15 pots of coffee just making themselves all day long.
Yeah, it's just alternating between coffee and tea for me. Coffee to keep me awake, tea to keep my voice going.
Probably wouldn't be able to stay in this smaller room for 24 hours.
Well, I would. I've done it before. Sort of.
I don't know what I'm supposed to think about that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Any shout outs? Let's just wrap this up before you two start blabbing about something else. Any shout outs that we want to give this week?
Not from me.
I'm gonna shout out to Hinduman because he provided the rankings that we talked about this year or this week. So I'm gonna give him a quick shout out.
Yeah.
Probably will never know it, but hey, I'm gonna give him credit and cite my source and give Hinduman a shout out. So thank you, Hinduman, for the rankings.
Yeah, if we remember
that
to do
provided
it.
so much of this episode.
Yeah, if we remember to do it, we will put the link to this tweet in the video description, by the way, so you can check it out there. Should have probably mentioned that a bit earlier, but still, we will do it. I promise. No, I don't promise. Still. Yeah, in that case, that was it from the Tuesday Night Smite podcast from this week, episode 10. If you did like this episode, do leave us a like on YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever else you're watching this right now or listening to this right now. If you want to be notified when new episodes come out, you can always subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on SoundCloud. You can also follow our Twitter account at Tuesday Night Smite for, well, whatever we're going to post there. Sometimes we do actually post things, I promise. And yeah, with that in mind, thank you all for watching / listening. This is a podcast after all. And thanks to you two guys, Sebo and Psycho, for being here with me today, putting up this awesome show. And with all that said, I'm saying goodbye to everyone out there. Good night. Good Smite.